we have joining us online by phone, we have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who is serving as the Trump chairman for Texas. So hello, Lieutenant Governor Patrick.
Hey, Debbie, great to be with you as always. Boy, you've come a long way, as they say, and I'm real proud of your success with the radio show. Well, I remember when you first started.
Yeah, that was quite a few years ago, and you were very kind. You know, we've been friends a long time because you came on that show, previous show, a long time ago too. So, well, thank you, very kind. Thank you. And actually, this is a compliment coming from you because you're a former radio host and now Lieutenant Governor and also chair of the Trump campaign 2020 for Texas.
Yes, and you know, it is such an honor to be asked by him to chair his campaign again. I was chair in 2016, and you know, going back in history, you know, when Ted was running and we had lots of people in the field, and Ted was our senator and I was chair of his campaign in Texas. I didn't know now President Trump in those days, and after the campaign was over, I reached out. Once he had wrapped up the delegates, I reached out to the president and said, look, I would like to help you. And the first time we met, which was in San Antonio in the event, he said to me, so why do you want to help? I said, because we have to beat Hillary Clinton, and you're the guy, and I'll do everything I can for you. And that started what has now become a great relationship over the last 4 years. And I'm just so excited about 2020. I think he's going to win bigger than he did in Texas last time, Debbie, which was 9 points. He'll win bigger nationally, and he'll do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, there were some Republican groups out there that didn't support him, small groups, but there were some Christian conservatives that said, we don't know, you know, if he really is going to follow through. Well, he did with moving the embassy, and he did with the Supreme Court justices, and on the pro-life issue and religious liberty, and he's done so much for religious liberty since he's been president, and so they're all in. And then you had some business people who are Republicans that said, you know, I just don't know, and they're all in because they're doing very well. And then you had some never-Trumpers in our party, except for maybe Bill Kristol, who I don't hear from anymore anywhere or see him on television. I think they're all in. So, you know, that's probably another 6 or 7% right there of people who just stayed on the sidelines and didn't vote for Hillary or him nationally or in Texas. And then, Debbie, you have the fact that he's going to do better with black voters and brown voters than he did last time. And let me give you this before the next question, let me just give you this last tidbit. The reason I think he'll do better, let's take the state of Minnesota. In 2016, they spent $30,000. That's all they had in their budget for Minnesota. I mean, that's not enough for a city council race in a small town.
Right.
$30,000 for the whole state, and they had a handful of volunteers, no paid staff. Now, and they lost by 1.5 points. That was it. Any kind of money, any kind of get out the vote effort there, he would have won Minnesota last time. So he now has millions to spend there. He has many paid staff on the ground, hundreds of volunteers, and that's the same thing in Nevada, New Mexico, two other states that I think he has a great chance of picking up this time as well.
I love all that. Yesterday, right after Super Tuesday, I went over some of the numbers, just fabulous turnout numbers in the midterms, the Super Tuesday we just had, fabulous numbers for people turning out in an uncontested primary in the states you mentioned to vote for him. There's a signal from the ground to the presidency. We're with you. We love you. We want to go with you. So I want to hit a bunch of questions very quickly. I know you're short on, we're always short on time, but in life. But one is, in Texas, there are many people, myself included, you just mentioned you also, we were Ted Cruz supporters because he's our guy, he's our senator, we know him, we love him.
Yeah.
But most of us instantly came around shortly after Senator Cruz dropped out and President Trump became the nominee. I just sense among the Cruz supporters I know that everyone is so grateful for everything President Trump has done. I think there's just no residual left in Texas of people who are a little bit supportive of Senator, or a lot supportive of Senator Cruz, want him to win. I just think the Cruz people have come around to see that Trump is exactly who we needed. You agree?
Yeah, I agree, and it is a minuscule number. And you were giving some numbers early in the beginning. For example, in Tuesday night's election, there were 1,991,000 that voted for the Proposition 7 to protect the monuments in the Alamo, for example. There were 1,900,000 89,000 that voted for the president. So that's 2,000 people out of almost 2 million that did vote. So that's a minuscule number, and there's always someone. You never get 100% on that who's going to skip a race, whether it's for president, governor, lieutenant governor, U.S. Senate, whatever it may be. So he virtually now has 100% of support, or 99.99.99.99. And so that's a difference maker, and that's going to be that way all over the country. And, Debbie, I've always said that when you run for office, you should say what you're going to do what you said you were going to do, because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's why President Trump is so popular. He said what he was going to do. He did what he said he would do. And that's what he was supposed to do. And people reward that and honor that and appreciate it.
They do. They reward it so much. Okay, so back to our distinction or difference between 2016 and 2020. In Texas in 2018, we had Beto on the ballot, and we had, people call it the Beto effect, where we had, in 2018, the midterms, we had some races in Texas closer than you might have expected to be. We had people on the GOP side of the aisle not winning as much or by as large margins as we might have expected, because all this excitement by Beto, who turned out to be a completely empty suit. I don't see any Beto on the horizon in Texas, any Beto factor on the horizon in Texas in 2020. Do you?
I do not. And by the way, just to illustrate your numbers and what you said is accurate. So Governor Abbott and I were on the ballot last in 2018. Abbott received between 1.7 and 1.8 million more votes than he did in 14 when we ran. He won by 20 points in 14, and this time he won by 12. So even though he got 1.7 to 1.8 million more votes, I received 1.5 million more votes. The governor always gets more votes than lieutenant governor, a few there. I received 1.5 million more, and my victory margin dropped from 19 to 5 points. So your point is well taken. Our Republicans showed up in waves last time. I mean, we said, to give you a comparison, Debbie, in 2014, the total Republican turnout in the off-year election is the governor and lieutenant governor election.
Yep.
In 2014, Governor Abbott and I had approximately 2.7 million votes. In 2018, Governor Abbott and I had between 4.2 and 4.6 million votes. So our Republicans turned out really to fight back against Beto, even though we didn't have a marquee race at the top. I mean, the governor was running, and I was running, and Ted Cruz was running. That was the marquee race with Beto, and that drove a lot of Democrats out. But our voters showed up, and you're right, there's not a Beto on the ticket. And a lot of those people who had Beto signs in their yards, which included some moderate Republicans, I know because I'd see signs in yards for Ted Cruz and for Beto O'Rourke and Greg Abbott. Not a lot, but some of you'd say, well, what are they thinking? Well, all of those people discovered he was an empty suit. And now, with him being embraced this Tuesday night or Monday night in Dallas by Biden, and Biden saying, I'm going to make you my gun czar. And here's a guy that said, I'm going to come and take your AR-15, and I'm going to take your guns from you. Well, he's going to sink like a stone, and he's going to sink Biden or Bernie, or if it's Michelle, if they go to Brooklyn Convention, they pick her, whomever it is. He's going to sink him like a stone, because what Biden has done is now inject Beto back into the debate. But Beto wasn't tested against Ted Cruz. The media never asked him questions. They let him get a free ride, and so this time Beto is a liability. And so it's going to make the margin even bigger of a victory if Biden is the guy and he's got Beto out there as his surrogate.
I could not agree more. And if we had another half an hour, I'd run through a bunch of other points, but I couldn't agree more.
I can go another 10 minutes with you, Deb, if you want.
Okay, so I
can go.
And we both can speak so quickly as well. Your many blessings. You speak quickly like I do. But first of all, I was going to say I was so surprised, and I thought it was just tone deaf that Biden commented in Texas how he would agree and be fine with Beto, or Beto, however you're supposed to say it, as his gun czar. I mean, this is tone deaf in Texas. I mean, I know that Biden makes many missteps and gets confused, but I thought if you're trying to shoot yourself in the foot, you would say that in the state of Texas. I mean, I think it'll hurt him in Texas, even with moderate Democrats, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, the Hispanic vote, and I was on Tucker Carlson the other night, and again Shannon Breen last night or the night before, talking about this issue of Hispanic voters and how the Democrats are counting on Hispanic voters. And by the way, in the Democrat primary, many of them went with Bernie and not with Biden. But the majority of Hispanic voters line up with us. They line up with conservative values. They line up with Governor Abbott or myself or Ted Cruz or President Trump because they are pro-life.
Yep.
They are pro-economic opportunity, pro-educational opportunity. They want a secure border. They want law and order on the border. And they're pro-religious freedom. And they're pro-Second Amendment. You know, there are lots of Hispanics that are proud gun owners like I am and everyone else is. And so if the Democrats, you know, the reason I think they're going to plummet in 2020 and it's going to be a disaster for them, because they are now stuck on the message, even though if Biden's the guy or whomever it is at Rooker Convention, they are stuck on this message of abortion. They're stuck on the message of open borders. They're stuck on the message of free everything for everyone. That's not what Hispanics believe in. They're stuck on the message of they want to. Joe Biden said he's going to eliminate all charter schools. That's a big issue for Hispanic voters. So all these issues, Debbie, they're on the wrong side. And him having Beto, you're absolutely right. He's tone deaf. But look, the other state that he won the other night that no one talked about was the state of confusion. The guy's always in a state of confusion.
Yeah. Okay, one other quick thing I want to mention is so interesting. I saw the numbers, looked through them this morning a little bit. I was so surprised in Texas. I know that Biden got a big bump the day before the Super Tuesday, and a bunch of people jumped on board with him. But I would have thought Democrats in Texas, generally speaking, would be more moderate, and that Biden would have gotten, 50 or 60% of the Democrat primary vote for president. But as it turned out, on the Democrat side, Biden did win Texas, but it was late. I went to bed before they had the final call of it. Biden got 34, and Sanders got 30% of the Texas Democrat vote for primary. Which leads me to say, I wonder what all of these Sanders supporters are going to do. They're beside themselves. Their guy might not win the primary, might not win the nomination. And I wonder if they just stay home. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to watch this party having drawn so many people to the radical left views that Sanders has. And now Sanders, he's probably not going to win the nomination. I wonder what they all do, especially in the great state of Texas.
Well, very interesting, Debbie, and you're absolutely right. I've been saying all along that when there were multiple candidates up there on the stage for the Democrats, that no matter who won, they had a problem. If let's just go back a few weeks when there were 6 or 7 or 8 of them on the stage. If Bernie won, then a lot of the moderates were going to stay home, and there'd be a lot of older Democrats would stay home, and so that would hurt their national ticket. If someone else won and Bernie didn't get the nomination, or it was taken from him, or people feel like he was ganged up on by the establishment, Debbie, you're right. Those people aren't coming out. I would venture to say of that 30% who voted for Bernie in Texas, I'd be surprised if 20% came out. And I mean, that's a huge drop-off for Biden or whomever they have at the ticket, because his people are really invested in him. And even though we've seen numbers now in Texas and nationally that he didn't turn out as many young voters as he thought he would, despite his big rallies and his big support with young voters. But the young voters are the ones who will not come out. I mean, it's hard to get them out, as Bernie found out this week. But not only that, once their candidate, whomever it is that they've invested in and knocked on doors, once their person is out, they're not going to show up and vote. So that's another reason why Trump wins by a bigger margin than before.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, first of all, it's fun to just catch your energy talking with you. I mean, I love that you're involved again in Texas on behalf of the Trump campaign, chairing the Texas effort for Donald Trump in this 2020 election cycle. And I love the energy. I love where we are in this country, where as we head into the 2020 elections, the numbers are fabulous for President Trump. Employment numbers, economic numbers, all sorts of good news bursting out. And I think we're in great shape. And I thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for calling into the show today.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We'll do it again. Thanks, Debbie.
Great talking to you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, one other thing I want to tell you in the elections, folks, before we get off this topic, is this. I read this number today, and I actually thought it was a typo. Like, I thought they had zeros placed incorrectly. Did you realize on this big, leading up to Super Tuesday, where we had, we had that on Tuesday and we went over the results in great detail. But leading up to Super Tuesday, the combination of the amount of money spent by just two leftist billionaires, Tom Steyer, who was out by Super Tuesday. So Tom Steyer, who's just a billionaire, made his money on fossil fuels, and now he's Mr. Anti-Fossil Fuels, a little hypocritical there, combined with the money spent by Bloomberg, Mike Bloomberg, now out also. Bloomberg running on with a plan that basically said, I don't talk to people, I don't get around with the common people. Oh yuck, I don't talk to these people. I just hire these fancy advertising agencies and they put ads out. That's how I win. Between Steyer and Bloomberg, two leftist billionaires, they spent, before both now being out of the race, they spent over $1 as in boy billion. $1,063 million, just those two characters, and out. And by the way, Bloomberg, still out of touch with reality, commented after withdrawing from the race that, Bloomberg said of himself, he still could have won in November against Trump. No connection to reality. Final point on the elections is that it was just very, very interesting today. Finally, Elizabeth Warren pulled out today. She had some underlings allegedly in negotiations with the Bernie Sanders team, I think trying to get some concessions on policy. She wants to tell herself she won something, so she's out. We're pretty much down to Biden and Bernie, and I think either way, the Democrats have a very, very hard time convincing America, given where we are, that we ought to be changing, as they say, changing horses in the middle of the stream.